As you take your seats, please silence your electronic devices, but have them ready to send your questions for the panel to askmetncyber@gmail.com. Now at this time, please welcome to the stage Colonel Mike Black, Vice President for Defense, AFCEA International.
All right, good morning. All right, pretty good. One redo. Good morning. All right, great. Just want to thank you for joining us today. I'm sure many of you were here for the previous keynote presentation by Ms. Manning, and thank you for coming back for this. But before we begin this panel, I want to, on behalf of AFCEA, we have a special presentation, and I'd like to invite to the stage our CEO, Lieutenant General retired Susan Lawrence, our Chair of the Board, Tamara Greenspan, and Ms. Goodwine to join us at the stage. Just a few words here. It's our privilege this morning to recognize Ms. Venus Goodwine, the Chief Information Officer of the Department of the Air Force, as this year's recipient of the AFCEA Chair's Superior Performance Award. The Chair's Superior Performance Award recognizes superior service to AFCEA over a sustained period of time. Winners set examples for others as dedicated volunteers who are active at all levels of the association and have shown sustained leadership for more than 10 years. Winners have often been active members of AFCEA for 20 years or more. Nominations are not solicited. Award winners are selected by the chair of AFCEA's International Board of Directors. Ms. Goodwine has consistently demonstrated unwavering commitment to the mission and values of AFCEA, answering every call to serve with a resounding yes. Her passion for building bridges across government, industry, and academia is matched only by her steadfast leadership and generosity of spirit. What makes Ms. Goodwine's contributions especially impactful is that she never does this alone. She's an amazing mentor. She always brings her team along with her, modeling the kind, servant, purpose-driven leadership that strengthens our entire community. Her leadership within the Department of Air Force and across the broader DoD, along with her dedicated support to AFCEA, has directly enabled missions for over 20,000 cyber operators and support personnel around the globe. Through her tireless advocacy, strategic insight, and commitment to collaboration, Ms. Goodwine has helped ensure our cyber forces are equipped, connected, and empowered to defend the nation in an increasingly complex digital battle space. This recognition is well-deserved and a testament to her lasting influence. Ms. Goodwine, congratulations. We thank you for your service, your visionary leadership, dedication to the mission, and protecting America's national security. I'll ask that after the pictures are taken, Ms. Goodwine just remain on stage, and then the panelists will come up and join, and I'll introduce our moderator. And do you want to say anything?
Just a couple.
Okay.
Come on, I'm never going to miss an opportunity to have a mic.
Yes.
I mean, a mic.
Two mics.
No, no, really. I say to you, General Lawrence and Ms. Greenspan and the team, and then all of you, industry and partners that work with me, every time I accept an award, I say I accept this award on behalf of my team, because the team members of the Office of the CIO are what enables me to have the outcomes that I do, because I set the vision and they move fast. They don't run away from the challenge, they run towards it, and I appreciate them for that. So when you see them, tell them congratulations as well. And I'm also excited because thank you for allowing me to be here today. Is one of my last official acts as the CIO for the Department of the Air Force. And I will tell you, my parting words to you is this, and I know I'm going to do a panel, is I'm not done, but time is up. So please look forward and follow me on LinkedIn to see what I'm going to do next, because I still want to be a contributor to this community because I enjoy working with each and every one of you. So thank you again for this recognition.
And now I'd like to invite General Yi and our panelists to take their place on the stage. All right. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's panel, Major General Garrett Yi, United States Army, retired. General Yi currently serves as Vice President and General Manager of the Army and Defense Agencies sector for General Dynamics Information Technology. In this role, he is responsible for the successful operation, execution, management for GDIT's Army and Defense Agencies mission programs. He leads over 3,000 employees and operations in 22 countries, implements effective employee and customer engagements, and focuses on improving service delivery in all major programs. Prior to joining GDIT, General Yi served in the Army and retiring as a Major General. His final assignments were in DISA and the Army CIO G6. He's a seasoned leader with over 20 years of experience, specializing in executive leadership, customer engagement, team building, performance improvement, and productivity optimization. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming General Yi.
Well, thank you, and I'm excited. This is an amazing panel that we have for all of us today, including myself. Every time I do one of these, I learn so much. And we're going to do some real quick introductions, but let me just kind of set the stage for a little bit here. This past couple of weeks have been kind of crazy in India. We've had a lot going on in the Middle East over the last couple of weeks as well. Eastern Europe, that is not going away. And China is the major threat to us. So the globe is in a bit of chaos at the moment, and it has been for some time. And at the same time, we have a new administration, and this is probably maybe our first look after the first 100 days as to the priorities of the CIOs and the representatives here for the organizations that they represent. And so I'm interested in hearing some of that. But at the same time, you know, we all know that we have legacy infrastructure, we're modernizing, we have to do so much, at the same time pivot to the new priorities from the administration and see on top of all that stuff that's happening around the world where your organizations are engaged and in support of. And so, wow, I tell you what, I'm excited to hear today what these leaders have to say. And so we'll do some quick introductions and we'll launch into priorities. So over to you, General Lewis.
All right. Can you hear me okay? All right. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Yi, General Yi, as I called him for several years. My name is Brigadier General Orby Lewis. I am with the Army's Chief Information Officer Office, and I am the Director of Cybersecurity and the Chief Information Security Officer, also known as the CISO. And I've been with the OCIO, or with the CIO, for a little under a year, and look forward to talking to you today.
Thank you. Ms. Rathbun.
Thank you for having me. Jane Rathbun. I am the Department of Navy's CIO, and I just got to meet Orby. I'm very excited to work with her, so congratulations on your role.
Thank you. So, of course, Venus Goodwine, the Air Force and the Space Force CIO, and excited to be here with these awesome panel members. I think you're going to be in for a great conversation today. We look forward to your questions. We have questions and answers, but we really want to hear what you have to ask us about, because we'd like to share that knowledge. So excited to be here. Thank you, Garrett.
Can we just give her one more round of applause?
Good morning, Jeff Hurley. I'm the IC4 Director for the Marine Corps, as well as I act on behalf of the Deputy Don CIO for Marine Corps, working under Ms. Rathbun in that role. Daunting to be part of this panel. A lot of big brains in the room. Should be fun. Thanks.
Hi, good morning. I'm Admiral Rusty Dash, the Coastie, and so I am both CG6 and the Coast Guard CIO.
So it's okay to call you Coastie then?
Absolutely.
Okay, I wasn't quite sure
Sentinels
about
too,
that,
if we want to be formal, but Coasties among friends.
All right, so first question is not going to be a surprise. What are the priorities of you, your office, post 100 days in the new administration? So, well, we'll just kind of go down the line and, you know, start with General Lewis and just go down to the Coastie at the end.
Okay, all right. So again, good morning. On behalf of Mr. Garcia, the Army CIO, just wanted to say that we are in line with the secretaries, the Secretary Driscoll and the Army Chief of Staff's priorities of transformation initiatives. So of those 3 initiatives, we fall right in line. There are three lines of efforts, if you will. One is delivering critical capabilities to the warfighter. The other is structuring or restructuring our force. And then the last one is really eliminating waste and getting rid of obsolete programs. So along with that, we are absolutely modernizing cybersecurity. The network. You'll hear me talk, if allowed, to talk about our unified network and how we work with our joint partners and allies to make this data centricity work so we can scale at speed and at range in whatever environment that we're in. So those are our priorities. Again, it's optimizing our network, it is eliminating waste, and it's also reimagining the workforce. It's upskilling the workforce. We need to put effort on people and our technology. Those are our priorities.
And you mentioned efficiency, and I'm sure we'll hear that quite a bit throughout this panel discussion. What I'm kind of hearing and seeing is there are things that we've been wanting to do for some time, and maybe now's the time to really step on the gas on some of that stuff, right? So
Yes.
glad to hear.
Yes, absolutely. As not to take from my other esteemed colleagues, but you know, the secretary as well as the chief, they've given us that green light to accelerate and again, kind of reimagine things. If they take away the money from us, how would you do? How would you deliver capabilities? And guess what? We have some innovative warfighters and civilians and other partners that will help us do that. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Garrett. Not dissimilar to General Lewis's comments. We are, I think, very aligned to what this administration is trying to achieve. We issued our Information Security Vision 2.0 in August of last year. The key pillars of that are optimize, secure, and decide. What we see in the optimize pillar is that we've got to modernize. We all need to get to zero trust. We all need to be cyber secure from the baseline up. But we can't do it without thinking about what can we get rid of. A part of our optimized portfolio is something called cattle drive, which is getting rid of legacy, of redundant capabilities, of doing exactly what the Army is doing, which is innovating on how we deliver these things, moving to enterprise services, instead of everyone trying to go it alone and do it themselves. How do we get to an modern IT ecosystem? I would call an organically native digital platform that delivers the core capabilities that a warfighter could use, a business operator could use, anybody could use, instead of doing it individually program by program. So that's a big piece of what we're doing on the optimized side. In the secure world, we're driving to zero trust, as I mentioned, but we're also driving to what we call cyber ready, which is earning the right to operate every day, getting out of paperwork compliance and moving to living and breathing cybersecurity as a key component to what you do every day. And on the decide pillar, what we've recognized is that data really is the star of the show. How we maneuver data from anywhere to anywhere at the speed of relevance in time for decision is really driving our entire strategic our entire vision, and how do we make data more accessible, transparent, how do we connect it effectively? That would be our optimization, modernization strategy to include this concept of unified transport, which is what we're calling it, reducing the number of legacy or accepted networks and getting to, again, that core backbone. And then on the data side, also how we're going to use data. And with this onslaught of commercialization of AI, I think there's a lot of opportunity to do things differently, ways that we've never done them before. So those are kind of my focus areas. Workforce is, of course, foundational to all of that. And of course, we all are taking hits with the DRP and with the reduction in workforce across the government. So how do we upskill? How do we bring the workforce into relevancy for kind of our future state operating environment?
I appreciate, we've known each other for a bit, and whenever you talk, it's always inclusive of cybersecurity, whatever we do. And I think 10 years ago, it wasn't quite that. It was more of a bolt-on, and now today, it's so natural.
Yeah, I would say that for me, a light bulb went off a couple of years ago where I'm like, you know what? Our cyber operators need to be at the table with us talking about what the architecture is going to look like, because at the end of the day, they have to command and control. They have to be able to see what's happening in order for us to be secure. And part of Zero Trust is really having that ability to continuously monitor, continuously assess what's happening in our ecosystem. And the way we were architected was never going to get us there. And so they do have a seat at the table. They are helping us drive our architecture for cloud and for transport. And it can never be another way. We have to be secure by design is what we call our secure pillar. And so secure and survivable by design, I should say. Yes. And so if they're not at the table talking to us about how they want to conduct operations and how they want to maneuver, then we're doing a disservice in how we architect.
Hey, can I build on, ma'am, the work that you all have done to define enterprise services is really enlightening for me, and I am 100% stealing shamelessly in that to prevent the sprawl of technology and to declare a winner also makes the total footprint that the cyber forces need to defend much smaller, and assured that we have installed all the capabilities that the cyber component needs to do that. And so it's not just a CIO budget reduction thing, it is making sure that the terrain is the right terrain. And so I just want to call that out as part of the work that you've done. I really like that approach that you took.
That's 100% concur with that.
That's a good point. I mean, the concept of the total cost of ownership, cybersecurity is part of that.
Yes, so. Cybersecurity is its life cycle. It's life cycle from cradle to grave, so to speak. Absolutely.
And foundational.
Yes.
So if I pick up where each of you commented and where you started, I always say what my boss likes fascinates the heck out of me. And so when you ask me, what are my priorities, it's those of my boss. And so SecDev says he is about lethality, readiness, and efficiency. So yes. And so immediately we looked at our CIO strategy, which is a strategy for the Department of the Air Force, the entire Department of the Air Force, and not just in the office of the CIO, but to make sure that we are in alignment. So we've always had our strategy cloud, cybersecurity, workforce, efficiency, enterprise services, of course, data and AI. And so, but now we're able to hone in on those particular 6 LOEs, same as my teams talk about. When you are the MilDev, when you're the CIO of a military department, vice, when you're in a federal civilian agency, it's sometimes a little different because we have service 6s. And so making sure that there's a difference between what the CIO does and what the 6 does is very important. And so when the CIO is delivering enterprise capabilities, it is for the entire enterprise, meaning the entire service, not just for the CIO piece or the business side. And so that's a clear distinction for us. And so when you comment on enterprise services, our job as CIOs is to make sure that we provide those capabilities, and then the mission area, the warfighter, can then enable or employ them as they see fit. Rather, that's cloud so that you can put data at the edge to make, decisions faster, better, cheaper, and that they have confidence in the data. But if, from my perspective, so I took my strategy and say, yes, I'm thinking about lethality, but it's from the joint lethality or the combined lethality. So where the Air Force has ABMS and Space Force has their space architecture, you got, project convergence and you got overmatch. How do we then coalesce together and then bring in DISA as part of the, combat support agency to do that? So we think about that lethality. So for me, having infrastructure, modernized, secure, resilient infrastructure, because we're going to project power from all of our installations. And we all know that there's no safe haven, there's no sanctuary in one installation, so it's important that whether I'm on a ship, whether I'm in some portion of the land, or where I'm at some installation, we need to be able to project that power. And so that becomes a #1 priority for us. So we have our Enterprise IT as a Service, which is our base infrastructure modernization, and it's looking at that. How do I make sure I have modernized technology, but also that's secure and resilient? And the other piece of that is that I can free up my uniform in order to do some of those other capabilities that are not commodity IT. Still focused on artificial intelligence. It's no longer just a buzzword. It's really how we can enable that our cybersecurity to be faster, because we have all these sensor data that comes from all of these endpoints, all of these tools. How do you take all that data in a BDP and really make sense of it? You have to have some sort of automation. We did that with robotic process automation. Now we're doing it with artificial intelligence. But the thing of that, you now have to consider the workforce piece of that. So looking at the .mil PF-P to understand how do you employ this new capability and have a trained workforce to do it. Also, my focus is we're establishing a Department of the Air Force Artificial Intelligence Center of Excellence. And the reason we're doing that is because AI has a continuum. It is, yes, I can use AI for summarizing briefs in a legal world, or I can use AI for productivity, but I also can use AI for AI-enabled autonomy. So when you have a continuum that broad, how do you make sure that the use cases or the tools that you use or the investment that you're making enable the strategic objectives? So the AI Center of Excellence in the Air Force is going to do that. And then lastly, our workforce. We've always focused on workforce, but it's a little different now because, as you've all seen through some of the executive orders, our workforce are leaving by choice or by force. And so now I have another role, and not only just skilling them, but I have to retain them. I need to reskill them because we're moving jobs around, but also the care and feeding is I need to focus on their mental as well. So how do I, as a leader, make sure that I'm helping them deal with stress, and how am I keeping them motivated? So using some of the things, Mark Gorak is somewhere here because he always talks about, you have to think about how you're going to retain your people before they start looking for a job. And so all of us, I know, have now created new strategies to get after our workforce. So again, the Air Force strategy with the 6 LOEs is still the same. I'm glad we were clearly aligned. And then I'll say the last thing about where we're in an opportunity space right now, because we've all said that the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, was going to be this big boogeyman. And Jane and I can both attest, we've met the DOGE person for the DoD CIO, and we were able to have a conversation and said, hey, we were already thinking about optimization and efficiency. Now let me tell you how we're doing it before you just kind of slash and cut without understanding why we're doing the things that we're doing. So that's our focus right now in the Office of the CIO for the department.
It's such a good point on the personnel. Although maybe empowered to do more and go faster in some ways that maybe we wanted always to do more and go faster, we're challenged with the personnel piece.
Yeah.
And keeping those employees motivated is a challenge, I'm sure, that you all are undertaking. And so, that's pretty tricky. To try to do more, go faster, at the same time, pay an extra special attention to the workforce that you do have.
And teach them balance. Teach them the balance between, yes, I want you to be bold and take bold actions. I want you to move faster, but I also want you to recognize that you still need to go home because you need to do those other things for your mental, your spiritual, your financial, all those things that help us be whole persons.
And the resilience.
And the resiliency. So now in every conversation we're having with our team, you have to ask the question, how are you doing? And then we have to be very specific on this is the priority. So all those other things, we call them stop doing. And so we need to make sure that our leadership knows where we're taking risk in some of those things. It's a new paradigm shift because we, you know, especially working in the 5-sided building, the goal is to do, faster, 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 and more with the resources that you have. Now it's a new mentality. I can do these things 1 to 6, 7 to 10, I'm taking risks because I don't have the resources. And those are conversations we just have not had in the past.
It's so important. And I'll just quickly say where I work, we have this campaign. It's called How Are You Really?
Yeah.
Right? So it's one thing to say, hey, how you doing? And then high five and keep walking. Well, that was not a super sincere how you doing. If you say, how are you really? How are you doing? That extra word, how are you really, makes a big difference. And be willing to listen, right? And sometimes just asking in a very sincere way might make a difference. So thank you for
sir,
that.
right now I'm reading the Covey book, The Speed of Trust, and that demonstrating the commitment to the person rather than the employee just is so important to your credibility as a leader and the trust that the workforce has in you. They know that you're not going to get to make all of the decisions. Some of this is being imposed on us, and we're doing the best we can, but that trust relationship, I think now, for me, is the most important thing for me to make sure that I'm maintaining. And a great way to do that is to not have superficial relationships, but to have really deep connections, deeper than we might have had in the past.
Yeah, that's a great book. We'll talk more about that later.
All right.
Something that we did at DISA a couple years ago. That was a big thing that we did, and it made a difference.
Yeah.
Over to you, Jeff.
Can I just say what they said? I mean, that would be appropriate, right? Hey, just to touch on a couple things from the Marine Corps perspective. We were following in Don's footsteps in a lot of ways. We're getting out in front of Don and some others. Brand new transport strategy was just signed by my boss, General Carter. Kind of delineating how we're going to go from flagpole to fighting hole and provide a common transport all the way there. On top of that, extend unification, which is the design of a single network with cyber visibility, again, from where our flagpoles are to our fighting holes. Our bases and infrastructure have gone from being bases and infrastructure where our people live to locations that are actually providing combat capability to the fleet. So we're working on a lot of those different things, doing real good work there. From the personnel perspective, Marine Corps is designed to do some very specific things. And I always get a bunch of laughs when I say this, but we're designed to blow things up and kill people, right? That's what the Marine Corps does for a living. Right now, we're taking a look at how we're designed, what we look like from a structural perspective, and we're taking a look at what are we doing that we're really supposed to be doing, and what are we doing that really should be somebody else's job, right? And are we designed to provide the functionality to the Fleet Marine Force so that when they're out there on the front line or when they're out there in that first island chain, that they have the right people in the right place to do the right thing at the right time? Not convinced we're 100% there yet, but we're making really good decisions, and we are going to involve Dawn, of course, in those conversations, but the Commandant has made some very specific requests of us, and we're moving out on that.
What I appreciate about the Marine Corps is that it's always been a very lean force, and the recent structural changes, I think, have caused or allowed the Marine Corps to be more narrowly focused on mission, which I think allows you to, really understand the IT cyber support needed for the force.
It is. I would say that. So we're taking the same conversational hits that everybody else is. We're taking the 8% conversation. A lot of my people come to me stressed about that, and every all hands I have, they said, this is the opportunity of a lifetime, folks. Right? So I spent 23 years active duty, and through most of that time I whined and griped about the way things were designed, and I spent 16 years as a civilian in the Navy and the Air Force, always listening to people gripe and complain about the way things are. This is now the opportunity for us to make the changes that we think should be made in order for us to be the institutions that we're supposed to be.
Good.
But
Very
the
good.
same is true of small force, that the Marine Corps is the Space Force. right? You're 5 years old, then what do 5-year-olds do? Where's my Space Force here? Because I don't want to, okay. No, I love my Space Force. And so what happens is it gives us an opportunity really as a test bed in some things that are enterprise, because they are small, they are nimble, and so we can do things in the Space Force that can then become enterprise capabilities. But at the same time, we can allow the Space Force to be the unique service that it is, even though they deliver service to all of the branches as well from a space perspective. But being small and innovative has two sides. It's good, but it also can create a lot of shadow IT as well. And so that conversation around what is enterprise and what is mission really needs to be settled. And when we talk about we're going to stop doing some things and transfer it, sometimes the conversation is we need to stop doing some things, because who are you going to transfer it to? We can't transfer everything to our industry partners because they say we need to cancel some of our contracts. Let's be truthful, right? And so how do you as industry help us know exactly what we should get from you that we don't have for ourselves? And I think that's a conversation we need to have as well.
And I think it starts with warfighting operations and moving back. Like I am going to applaud the Marine Corps and their transport strategy, because they really have taken a how am I going to war with my IT approach, and it's a really good strategy. It's one that I think we all are trying to do, the Navy is trying to do, and the rest of the services.
And not to interrupt, but it's more than just a strategy. It's being implemented as we speak.
Yeah.
There are pieces of this already being installed today.
Yeah, but to your point about honing in, not doing more with less, but doing less, doing what focused, targeted things. Yes. It also requires us to really live the interoperability world and trust our fellow service members. That I will say in my 30 years in DoD is not always there. Like, I think we end up creating shadow IT and our own thing because we feel like we have to own it to control it and trust it. And so it's an opportunity to rest, building off of what you said, Rusty, is like you building that trust not just with your people, but with your warfighting partners, your mission partners, and our own DoD services.
Without getting into a tangent, I appreciate the conversation about understanding what should be inherently governmental versus non-governmental, and the recent memo about insourcing and whatever that is, as I think our opportunity to really say this really needs to be government, right, and not government, in a way that maybe in the past we haven't had that honest dialogue, I think, on that. So
I want to hear our co-Steve, but can I just add one thing really quick? So industry, come closer. I'm going to tell you something. We literally have to think differently now. That's not a shocker to you, but let me tell you what I mean. When you often come to the Department of Defense, you go to the Army, to the Air Force, Space Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, all separately. I'm going to challenge you to not do that. I need you to do some extreme teaming and think about the capability and how it will be employed for the department so that we don't have to try and make those relationships. If you will do that extreme teaming for us, bring it to us as a solution that takes into account land, sea, air, space, your amphibious.
Both. All of the above.
Right?
Yes.
But really, seriously, because right now, what DOGE is looking at us and they say, why do you have this and you have this and you have this, and we go north and south, and it's because we make mission and you make money, but now together, we're gonna have to make mission and money at the same time. So
And I'll
come
take
to
that one
us.
step further, ma'am.
Yeah.
I won't talk to industry unless they're already talking to Dawn. I will not.
Yeah, but that's a service perspective. I want to go up a level and ask you to do things at the department perspective.
Jane does.
Right, at the DoD, because we do that.
We're
right?
seeing that, right? The DoD CIO is driving a lot of that right now. I'm looking at an Oracle person in front of me, and they're the first out the chute, being asked to rethink their contracting strategy so that we all use Oracle products. So how do we effectively buy Oracle products that give us a return on investment or give us the smart business case approach to that. And so I do think, again, services exist because they have individual missions that are critical to the warfight, and that's not going to change. And how they deploy technology may be different, but there are a bunch of, to your point, underlying core capabilities that, and I've had companies come to me and say, I don't want to do individual business with the Navy. Can we get an ELA? Can we get an enterprise license agreement? And so to your point, can we get an ELA at the DoD level versus doing one at the service level?
But I want you to take it a step further, because I want you to start at the problem that you're trying to solve that will drive the requirement that will help you develop the solution, then to come talk to us as a department, as one. That is what I'm encouraging. And then bring to us also different contracting strategies, because if any of my acquisition teammates are in the room, they have a way of what they look at and their go-to for acquisition. I'm asking you also have acquisition strategies, bring that to us as well, because in order for us to be faster, better, cheaper, and still securely, we have to rethink about the way that we're going to do this thing called secure the nation. And that's the Department of Defense's role. And so when the industry comes in, they say, I'm going to give you this thing. In Army, this is how you employ it. In Navy, this is how you can employ it. In Air Force, this is, and help us with that. Because I tell you, it will save time. Because it's like, I read today, it's like the CIO, has, a bus and has a gas pedal, but everyone else has brakes. So we get nowhere. We need to stop doing that, and I just mean that wholeheartedly. So if you take nothing from what I said is, please, let's agree on the problem, generate the requirements, do a whole of department.
Good. I'm glad you kind of got that off your chest there.
I know that was, I couldn't sleep last night because I was thinking of that.
All right, Rusty, over to you.
So to
Go ahead.
Yeah, to build on that, ma'am, this administration is absolutely focused on outcomes and results. And so talking about me, from my own experience, wanting to buy new technology just to eliminate tech debt is completely uninteresting to my interaction with, and again, I have the same response working with DOGE, is that they do not want to negatively impact our crucial missions. They absolutely want to get after efficiency. And so those two things can happen together. But back to your point of, I don't want to buy technology just because it's the coolest, newest technology. I want to buy that to drive operational outcomes or mission support that enables operational outcomes. And so it's just a different sales pitch that I am internally interested in receiving, but will not survive in a competitive resource environment for me. So what changed for the Coast Guard with this administration on January 20th? The president declared a national emergency on the border. And the Coast Guard has 11 missions. I won't list them for you, but one of those is secure, control, and defend America's maritime borders. And so when President Trump declared that emergency, we re-racked our mission priorities that day and immediately shifted assets to do those missions, primarily focused on alien migration interdiction and counter-drug at a higher level than we did before. One of the really cool things that happened, I, as the Coast Guard 6 and CIO, am extremely interested in being interoperability and a member of the Joint Force, even though we're over in DHS. We live on the DODIN, and I am very interested in everything Ms. Rathbun does as Don CIO. But last month, the Navy deployed 2 destroyers, one off of the California coast and one off the Texas coast. So all of a sudden, interoperability took on a whole, we reversed the polarity on that. It was like, hey, Navy, you're doing a great job owning the night, looking for bad guys on the water. How do you share that with a Coast Guard command center rather than, oh, you've got this little Coast Guard cutter that's with the Navy battle group, how are you going to interoperate, which is our normal MO? And so that interoperability we had to think about differently, and we built on a lot of the lessons we've learned over a lot of the years. And so yes to all of the technology things in the us as a member of the Joint Force being ready for all of those contingencies, but in particular our Homeland Security mission and this administration's focus, a lot changed for me as the 6 and CIO with our mission prioritization change for this administration.
I have appreciated the Coast Guard over the past, I would say, 4 or 5 years has really become more involved with the DoD network, right? Participating in, DoD-related activities and forums and discussions, and what you just said about the interoperability is something that is a must. So, such a good point. So that was the first question, priorities.
Wow.
We just blew that up.
Put my notes away.
The second question, and make sure you have questions that you have in mind for this group here. And I originally called it the elephant in the room question, but I think we kind of stomped all over that already about the budget reductions and the personnel cuts to some degree. But how have those two things, the budget reductions and personnel challenges, impacted, if at all, your priorities and what you're trying to get done? Start. And don't feel obligated that you have to answer this question. You answer as you feel comfortable. But
yeah, so that's great. Thank you. So you'll probably hear some of the same themes and messages across my esteemed colleagues here. But we talk about the budget reductions and personnel changes. So we like to look at it, as I've mentioned before, as opportunities, right? So we've been given the green light to go faster, to reimagine things, to now employ at a faster or accelerate AI and machine learning, freeing up our workforce to focus on those mission critical capabilities. We are looking at, when we talk about eliminating waste, we're looking at data rationalization. We've been closing data centers forever, but we're finally doing that. We are finding efficiencies. As the CIO, we have what's called a DD peg. So we look at those resources, and we look at the allocation of IT services and see what's redundant, what's not working. We're getting rid of legacy systems. This challenge, if you will, has again given us that green light. We're looking at our Army regulations. They are often outdated and voluminous. So we are looking to skinny that down, neck it down where it's like an ADP where you can see it, understand it, and move out. And so in that interim, while we don't have perhaps PAMs, the implementation guidance, what we do in the CIO is put out policy saying, hey, free yourself from the draconian policies and the ARs that's keeping you down, and we're doing policy saying that you can do it. We are partnering with our G6 counterparts to help them, and while they create that implementation guidance. We're listening to the warfighter. Again, we're enabling that AI and that machine learning to do those things that takes hours to do. So that is how we look after it. It's more like an opportunity as opposed to a challenge. Again, yes, it's time to go. We will accelerate fast, but we will also be smart about it. So it's about securing the data centricity, interoperability, standards, resilience and survivability. I'm sure soon, I'll let my other teammates talk, but I'm sure we'll talk about our meeting last week when we were with the DOD, the Miss Arrington, DOD CIO, and the other CIOs, and we were talking about blowing up RMF, that risk management framework, right? And really, that's really about continuous monitoring. It's about automation. It's about making risk-informed decisions. It's about operationalizing the network and seeing ourselves, seeing where the threat is, and then responding to that threat. It's being resilient, it's being agile. And I'll stop there and let my other teammates carry on.
You said our DoD meeting last week, everyone's ears perked up.
Yeah, DoD CIO. Oh, it's blowing up RMF. More to follow.
But I don't want industry to take from our conversation or even our interaction with DOGE is that we're not going to have contracts in the department, because we know that doesn't make sense. We have to have the capabilities that you provide. But what I will tell you, and we had already started to do this before before January, is we already started to look at how we were investing our dollars, because we've always been in a resource constrained environment. We've always had to make hard choices. Do I keep the same amount of flying hours, or do I modernize a base, right? We've always had to make trades, but now we're forced to really as an entire department, not in the siloed way that, in the Department of the Air Force, we have different mission sets by different major commands, service component commands or whatever, But now we're looking at it at the corporate level, that we look at it across all of the Air Force. So what does that mean? Everything is on the table. And now it's about the mission. So we start with our force design, going back to, hey, which mission threads do we want to achieve in a fight? And then reverse engineer that and understand through the .mil PF exactly what you need. What technology do you need? What people do you need? At what skills do they need? At what level and what proficiency? And not just the uniform wearers. What do you need from the support side, your civilians? And what do I need from my contractors in those space? So we've tried to now look at it holistically, but if you've been around and listened, we did this with the operational imperatives when the Air Force did that. Last year, 2 years ago, we started with the Re-Optimizer Great Power Competition. We started to do that. All of those efforts were geared towards how do we remain focused on the fight that we need, that if deterrence fails and we needed to fight, would we actually be ready with not only the capabilities and the technology, because when you talk readiness, it's just not the readiness of the people, it's the readiness of all our weapon systems, it's the readiness of all our technology that enable those readiness. And so from the CIO perspective, I look at it through the digital infrastructure lens. Is the digital infrastructure ready to support ABMS? Is it ready for ABMS to interact with Project Convergence or Overmatch? And so that interoperability happens at the data layer. Jane talks about it all the time, that data needs to be able to traverse the network, regardless of classification, and Zero Trust will help us do that, because the right people with the right access, the right clearance, the right need to know will have access to the data because it's tagged. I don't need to be held up on the right device, and we don't care about the transport that it uses, right? Because we're going to do it at the data layer. And so I think just we're rethinking. Now we're thinking more out loud, because we've already been thinking about these things. Now we're just doing it out loud.
So culture eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So we are talking about a fundamental shift on how we think. And like you said, we have been talking about this. We understand the power of the technologies that are available to us. We don't have a technology gap problem. We have a how to optimize the utilization of that technology. Venus is right. We can all say we've always been budget constrained. I am amazed at my Marine Corps partners, brethren, how much they do with how little. And so we'll be we will be innovative in how we work with less budget, but we do have to fundamentally, and we're all doing it, it's happening, fundamentally rethink how we maneuver, how we bring capability to the warfight. It is not an enterprise versus tactical anymore. The technology that we will use enterprise, we are using in the tactical, and there's going to be more of that. So what Venus started out with is that there is opportunity for industry to support us. We are going to go to war with our industry partners. We always have. That's not going to change. We have a lot of work to do to not do business as usual, and really, again, as Venus said and others have said, start with the ConOps, start with how we're going to operate, how we're going to maneuver whatever we need to maneuver, and then design with that in mind to include the cyber operator. So when we talk about Cyber Ready, which is our initiative to get out of RMF, we talk about the fact that every capability we build has two customers, really. It has the warfighting customer who's going to hit the button for targeting or whatever, but it also has the cyber C2 operator. I use the word customer, you can you use the word user, whatever you want to use, but both of those functions have to be taken into account when we design capabilities, because in order to keep them cyber secure, the cyber operators need to be able to see. And as much as the warfighter needs to be able to have the data and information he needs to make the decision to do whatever piece of the kill chain they are going to do. So people are my bigger concern with your question, Garrett. I don't really know the impact of what's going to happen, because this wasn't a targeted maneuver to take out certain organizations or certain functions. It was quickly get rid of workforce, and it's a tactic that we can use. It's being used, but it's going to be probably a year before we really know the impact of who left and how critical some of those functions were, and can we hire behind them? Or do we need to, again, rethink our workforce? Again, an opportunity for technology, like can we get rid of functions that were critical, but maybe now AI can help us do those. It's going to be, for me, an exciting time. It's opportunity, as Rusty, you said, but it's also going to be incredibly stressful.
But we'll have to train the workforce for AI. We keep saying AI, we often do, not us, but us, as it's just this magical pill that's going to solve all of our problems. If you don't have a trained workforce that understands the technology, even something as simple as understanding prompt engineering or understanding how to secure the technology, all the same threats we have with our traditional networks, you will have with the artificial intelligence technology. And so when we say that, there's a total cost of ownership of AI, right? And this is why we always say the .mil PF for that particular tool or that particular capability, because you got to consider the training. So who's going to train? I think we may be fooling ourselves sometimes if we think that our workforce is singularly focused in skills. They are multiple capable, and not only because, and they know more than what we've trained them. I may have sent you to school to be a certain AFSC, but you know that technician that's on the flight line, that maintainer at night, he has a network in his house and he knows just as much about cybersecurity as the cyber people. I have to identify this multi-capable workforce that I have. So when we talk about creating a new strategy, it's going to be that, finding all the skills that's within our workforce so that we can use them appropriately.
So 2 quick thoughts, and hopefully Jane doesn't throw her shoes at me for one of these. We talk about data and what we're going to do with data, and data is going to solve a lot of our problems if we operate at the data level. I am not convinced we're ready to do that yet. I think there's a lot of work that has to be done on describing how that data is labeled, what the metadata looks like. Exactly. So between Air Force, Army, Navy, you know, does a tank mean the same thing? It really doesn't. If I order a tank from the Army, it's going to be something totally different than if I ordered a tank from the Navy. So I think there's a lot of work to be done there. From the personnel perspective, so I've been in the Marine Corps seat for about 7 months. Before that, I was the executive director at J6 at Transcom, and in both of those positions, I learned a couple of things about training. One, that our training institutions, the folks that are training our occupational fields, aren't keeping up with technology. They're just not. And Venus is right. We're going to have to make sure that those folks are trained appropriately, but we're going to have to turn those around and start doing those things in different ways, I think, if it's going to keep up with the way technology is moving. And AI is a perfect example. AI is going to do amazing things. It may help us solve our data problem ultimately. It very well might. But even AI needs training. You need to train the system. You need to train the large language models to do those things that you want it to accomplish. And while a small portion of our workforce may have that talent intrinsically because they're growing up in this world, a lot of them don't. So we need to be able to turn that around and change the way we're doing business in the training world.
But I think our academic engagement office that's just created in the DoD CIO, we have today, correct me, over 400 agreements with academic institutions that we can leverage to drive the curriculum that's being created at installation, so that we can, one, when individuals go to get certain degrees, we understand because it's not just that they're going to come work for DoD, but that's the whole of nation problem that we're trying to solve. We can have those engagements and conversations.
And we're also,
So
I mean,
right
we're
about
competing
that.
with industry too for the same
Absolutely.
talent, right?
Yep.
So, and I say we're competing, we're not, because industry brings talent to us as well. So
Absolutely.
if you guys are trained and better capable, then you're bringing that to my team as well. But there is a piece of it that has to be Marine.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've started doing on the workforce piece at our ITA school, so the petty officer rate for the Coast Guard Information Technology Specialist, we actually made a segment of their course get Sec Plus certified. And the training enterprise of the Coast Guard's head blew up because we said, thanks for your professionally developed normal way of building an A school to train an MOS in the Coast Guard. but you're not going to keep up fast enough. And so I just want to hire a certified instructor to come in and teach that classroom of young coasties that, and then pass the exam, which, oh, by the way, the DoD requires if I'm going to give them admin credentials to do work anyway. So that shift to industry standard training is something that I think we've taken a baby step in that direction, but we really need to lean into to keep that kind of fluid information flow and us up to those standards. But, sir, back to the bigger question, the obligation that I feel to the people as we go through this really dynamic time is to communicate as much as I can about where we're going and the commander's intent, but then also it's easy, I found it easier to say, get rid of the stuff that doesn't matter in the bureaucracy. It's a lot harder to go through and say, those specific steps on the checklist, you don't have to do anymore. Because what I've found is everyone says, when you're sitting around the table that owns the process, got it, we have to go faster. But when you start going and saying, well, how much are you going to cut your step? They go, oh, no, my 5-week step is super important. All you other people need to go faster, but my stuff is precious. And so the challenge as a leader has been, no, you get 5 days, not 5 weeks to do your step in the process, figure out how to make it work, or eliminate that altogether. And so it is, I've found it easier to say than do, and to eliminate the bureaucracy that has grown up over time. But it is our I feel that obligation it's the thing that I can do as the CIO, the policy owner, to do that.
I think you're right. It's definitely a culture shift, right? That mindset, communicating with those that will actually go out and do it. So that's definitely true. But I think we definitely, when I say a culture shift, get out of the checklist mentality, that compliance. And again, as Mr. Garcia says, reimagining, how you will do business. So, when you're looking at your piece of the pie, let's look at the whole pie together, and perhaps we do that cross-training. And as Venus mentioned, okay, we're not going to eat that pie. Perhaps our pie is smaller, but it's stronger and it's more lethal and it's survivable.
And don't let your current policies be the reason why you don't think out of the box. Like, we have got to be all about really greenfielding ideas and then figuring out where our roadblocks are and getting rid of those roadblocks. And so that, again, that's why I said culture eats breakfast, everything, we have to, this is a significant culture paradigm shift. The way we used to train isn't going to be the way we train in the future. The workforce, or the kids coming out of school, they're going to their baseline of what they know, it far exceeds most of us from a technology perspective. And we cannot take 20 years to figure this out as we have taken in other areas. And so we've got to really be, as leaders, we have to really be open to anything's possible, doing it in a way that is foreign to us. How do we learn quickly and pivot in our approach so that we can stay relevant and get relevant. I'll just use the example, we were traveling last summer with the CIO and we went to JP Morgan Chase and they told us that all of their financial analysts would be required to understand how to program in R and one other language. And I was like, financial analysts are going to be software programmers. And they're like, it's a requirement. It's a must for them to keep up with the industry, to keep up with the information. And so I like to use that as an example of that is our future. Like what we expect out of our program analysts, or our management analysts, we are not transactors anymore. We have got to be analysts, like in-depth understanding data and how to leverage data for our use. And it's not easy. And our data isn't ready. 100% agree that we have a lot of work to do to make the terabytes of data that we produce useful to us.
But I think it's because we're trying to fix all the data at once. Why not identify the use case, fix the data for that use case, and when you move to the next use case, chances are that it's some of the same data, you've already done it. If you would do it based on the need that you have for the decision you're trying to make, as opposed to eating the elephant all at once. And let's go back to the RMF thing and blowing up RMF. Yes, we had a great meeting, about a whole bunch of us in a room. How many of you in the room wish we'd get rid of RMF? Yeah, but RMF was a framework, right? Ron Ross, when he created that and that idea, it was a framework in which we would then create an implementation of it. The problem isn't with the framework. The problem is with our implementation. So I say to you, if you're industry and you're bringing a tool to me, you've already done secured by design, or you already have an ISO 27001 certification or a SOC 2 certification, I think you should be able to bring that and say, I am secure, and then I don't force you. I will take your body of evidence from those already industry standards. That is what we're trying to do when we say blow up RMF. It is use what industry has already used to securely develop the applications and then bring it to us, and us not check their homework, but we move to the, let's do continuous monitoring based on the risk of the data you're going to process, store, transmit, and if lost, you know, what would be that impact? And so that's what we mean by blow it up. It's not get rid of it, but it is the implementation has gone to checklists. But I'll tell you, I don't know if you boarded a plane lately, when you look to the left when you board the plane, you like to see that that pilot's doing a checklist, don't you? So checklists are not bad. Checklists might be bad in our math. So it's not that all checklists are bad. Let's just figure out where we need them. But in the risk management framework, though, we have to learn how to use and reuse what industry has already done to secure, because they have a fiduciary responsibility, especially if they're public. They don't want a threat, an incident, or a breach either, because it costs them dollars. So let's start to leverage what they've already done to create these secure products.
Jane, I would argue that's sort of what Cyber Ready does
Yep.
today, right? That's the track we're headed down.
Yep. It is earning the right to operate every day, and it is a natural part of what you do. And you produce the body of evidence, which is not paperwork, which is data that you are continuously monitoring and controlling your ecosystem, that you are conducting adversarial threat assessments so you have an understanding of your threat posture, and that you have a way to evaluate mission risk.
And if you not use the word control, it's a countermeasure for an identified risk. And the risk is the vulnerability and the threat and the likelihood and the consequences. So stop using the word control. It's a countermeasure, because we've identified through threat intel that the adversary has interest and capability, and we have a confidence level that they can exploit that. And we want to put in place a countermeasure. If you look at it as a countermeasure and not a control, then you would have a different appetite for it. And especially if I told you that the confidence level of the adversary of exploiting that based on temporal environments, you would want that countermeasure in place. And then the continuous monitoring is the key.
Well, just to let you know that if there's in the past a CCRI or a CORA, industry is part of that, and we feel just as accountable. Because oftentimes it's someone from, you know, some business that's supporting that organization that's doing the actual work, oftentimes. And so we go through CORAs every month in our company.
Yes, great.
So I want to pause here for just a moment, and we just got through this question about impact of personnel and budget reductions that somehow morphed into RMF, but that's okay. Because that's important. But I want the audience to understand that these leaders here are going through a tremendously difficult task of leading and providing guidance to their organizations to move forward. You didn't hear any one of them complain or say, feel sorry for me because it's so hard. They're all looking forward to get to where they need to get to. And I want you to understand that, because that's leadership. And these are our senior folks representing or, you know, ensuring that, you know, literally the Army, the Air Force, the Department of the Air Force, Marine Corps, the Navy, Coast Guard, getting after this stuff. And sometimes what you read in the news makes you wonder, because there's a lot of sensationalizing that's happening. But at the end of the day, these leaders are tasked to do something very difficult, which they have been trained to do, and they're getting after it. Sure, and being honest, I think as well. I'd say, Jane said, I may not know the impact until a year from now, but we're going to have to deal with it, right? And we can't stop, because this is national security. We do have a lot of resources, no matter how you use your resources. And so this conversation we had about budget reductions and staff reductions, but you know, let's get after it was an important piece of this discussion. I appreciate that. We're getting close to Q&A time, but I know we had a few things that folks wanted to say. So I know Arby had General Lewis had some. Can you just tell us what's going on with the Unified Network Plan 2.0?
Oh, thank you, sir. So the Army Unified Network Plan. So this is like not a reboot, but it's 2.0. So that was actually published in March. And this started back in FY 2021. And really, it's just enhancing what we've already done. And it's really about enabling the network it's the roadmap, if you will, but it's enabling the network for that multi-domain operation. As I've mentioned before, it's about standards, so we can make decisions at speed and at scale before the adversary. When we make those informed decisions, we are utilizing machine learning and AI for that predictive type of cyber readiness and all other types of readiness, if you will. And when we do this, when we look at the unified network, it's really like at echelon, if you will. So we did talk about who does what. So at the strategic level, it's about those standards. It's about that interoperability, working with our joint and allied and coalition partners. And then at the operational level, it's really about that theater level reach back capabilities. The hybrid cloud, getting after that, having access to that data. And then at the tactical level, it is really reducing the complexity for those warfighters so they can get after what they need to get after, taking those capabilities to the tip of the spear. So it's at those levels, at that echelon, and that's what the Army Network Plan talks about. Hopefully, a plug for Lieutenant General Ray. He'll be here tomorrow, and he'll talk in detail about the AUMP. But that is the plan to the unified network operations that I discussed. So thank you for that opportunity to mention that.
That's a good example of ensuring your message gets out. Here, ask me this question. All right. Were there any other things that folks wanted to say before we go to Q&A to the audience? Okay, so, well, first, do we have questions?
Thank you. The first question from the audience. You all have common themes of modernization, unification, efficiency, and security. What are your thoughts on the draft DoD CIO memo of sunsetting the unified capabilities process of centralized interoperability and cybersecurity testing in a multi-vendor and multi-service environment, and instead placing that responsibility on the individual services?
Okay, who wants to bite at that one?
Translate.
That was a very long question.
I'm not sure I'm tracking that memo. What is the?
Read the question again.
Yeah, what memo was that?
If whoever asked that question can stand up and shout it out, that would help me out a lot.
Especially if it was a DoD CIO employee.
Oh, it's Rick, of course. Okay. Well,
Yeah, I don't know about
maybe
commenting on a draft policy yet until it's finalized.
Okay,
Well,
so
I mean, if it's draft, I'm not sure I've seen it yet, so.
I know I have not.
I cannot answer the question.
yeah.
You've
Sorry.
stumped the panel.
job.
I will have an opinion, but I would need to see the menu, the memo first.
Sorry, Rick. Let's go to the next question.
As things potentially escalate from competition to crisis/conflict with China, are we prioritizing optimization and modernization efforts for Indo-PACOM and key enablers for the Joint Force Commander? Or are we spreading efforts broadly across the force, which may slow our posture for advantage against China, but would mature the entire force more quickly?
So
I-
yeah, we're absolutely focused on INDOPACOM. I would say that every service up here is probably focused on INDOPACOM. I would also say that as we can, though, our designs are such that they can be utilized in any environment across the globe. The reality is, if something kicks off in INDOPACOM, it's not going to be only INDOPACOM. So we have to be ready to respond anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, and I'll just pile on what Jeff said for the Navy piece of it. The fight from the mock approach that they're taking is not a mock that's unique to a particular region, but there have to be core capabilities in all the mocks, to Jeff's point, because any war, even if it's in a particular region, is going to be a global effort. And so we'll have to have the reach back. We'll have to be more uniform in our approaches there. So. But yeah, he's right. I mean, every single one of us, if we're doing something, if we're piloting something, if we're even with the DoD CIO, things that we're working on with them, it is always INDOPACOM mission use cases that we are focused on.
Yeah, I think the national defense strategy still says that China is our pacing challenge and Russia is the acute threat. And so, yes, INDOPACOM, but as you said, Jane, it's never going to be limited to a region. It will be a multiple combat and command engagement if it goes to a crisis. But I think CJADC2 is still the strategy to get after if we're in crisis, meaning that we bring all the domains together, and that cyber is a critical domain because of the non-kinetic effect that can happen in that domain. And so we are balancing our resources, and that goes back to my conversation about mission threads, right? We understand the adversary, and we understand how we would like to address the adversary. And so we engineer that into the capabilities that we need in order to do that across all of our domains, and then get after the interoperability there in order to give, in this case, Admiral Paparo everything he needs in order to make decisions faster and to have trust also in the data that we're providing him, because all of these assets will bring sensor data. And we need to make sure that there's trust in that, and then using some of the capabilities we've talked about in order to get through that data faster.
The other thing to remember, most Americans don't think about U.S. territorial integrity in the Pacific, but whether it's Guam or CNMI, that is U.S. territory. Our homeland exists in the middle of the Pacific as well. And so we have a strong Coast Guard presence in Guam that probably grows to match that, especially in that competition and crisis phase, hopefully not getting to conflict, but to be ready. And so it's not just a thing that's on the other side of the globe. That's U.S. territory over there as well. It's very important to us.
Yeah, I would say someone was cheering for Guam.
Someone agreed with that.
Point well made. I think it's not either or, it's that and.
Yes.
Because we can't stop doing what we're doing in other places around the world.
We're under attack now, our infrastructure, Salt Typhoon, Volt Typhoon, Silk Typhoon, all of that, right? In our critical infrastructure, our telecommunications, that's public. And so we are in competition now to defend our critical, because we want to be able to fight from wherever, whenever, at a time and place of our choosing. So it doesn't matter. So we're trying to prioritize every one of our base, post, camps, and stations to be able to protect power.
Quickly, then I'll go to the next question. In cyberspace, we're always in the fight.
Yes.
Worldwide.
Yes, absolutely.
Period. Okay, next question. We have time for one question.
Are there plans to modernize CAC as an authenticator and associated policy to more modern authenticators for use with GFEs and personal devices to include mobile smartphones and tablets?
Already doing it.
We use soft search today.
All right, that was it. Okay, so
That's the easiest
I want to
question
just
we've had all day.
allow 30-second wrap up. We'll start from Rusty and come back this way.
Thanks. I think to foot stomp the opportunity that's in front of us, rather than look at the dynamic environment that we're in today as a crisis, as Eeyore and oh bother and woe is us, the call to action as leaders and all the way down to the technicians implementing the technology, we have to seize the opportunity that's in front of us rather than whine about what we don't have. And I think what you heard today was loud and clear from everyone on the panel that we know what we need to get after, and it's not going to be easy, but we're up for the challenge, and so much of that work is done with our partners in industry.
Yeah, I agree. Opportunity abounds both from industry and for the services. We're going to continue to move out and be ready when the nation calls.
So two things. One, if you've ever been in a situation and you said, I don't know why they do that, we are now they. So I'm asking you to tell us, you know, because Jane and Leo and Stanton and I, we talk and communicate with Miss Arrington. And so tell us where we are inhibiting you from solving the problems that we say we have. Are we clear to you on the problems we're trying to solve? Do we have consensus on the problem? And I think that's where we need to start, because that'll drive the requirements, which will drive our investment. And then I'll end where I started. Thank you again. It's been really the joy and pleasure to sit in this seat, and I'm glad that this is my last official role here, and I'm glad to be able to do it with AFCEA and at TechNet with this esteemed panel. So thank you.
Thank you.
Venus, thank you for everything that you've done for the world and the Air Force. And I've very much enjoyed working with you. And thanks to the panel, it was really a great conversation. So Garrett, thank you for chairing the panel and the conversation. I think everything, you know, pretty much has been said. I'm going to, you know, emphasize what Rusty just said, is that look, I think the federal workforce is pretty gosh darn resilient. They know why they serve. They serve to enable mission for whatever agency that they work in. I feel very passionate. I could have taken the DRP. I have 30 years and I just turned 60, so I could have done it. I felt that I needed to stay because there are things that need to get done, and that my team is a relatively new team and needed. I just wanted to make sure I was there for them, and I'm glad with my decision. I don't fault anyone who took other decisions, but this is, our warfighters need us, and I think we need industry to be our partners in helping to make sure that they are ready for whatever fight is coming, the fight that we're in, and I look forward to working with you all.
Jane, thank you for staying. Venus, thank you for your leadership and your mentorship. I will stay connected with you. Just wanted to publicly say that. From an Army perspective, again, the network clearly, as you've heard, is the critical enabler. Notwithstanding the challenges that we talked about, rest assured that the Army is positioned, we are postured and prepared to take the fight to the enemy, and we will succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. Let's give them a hand. All rise.
All right. How are you? Really? How are you? Okay. I want to thank this panel. And in lieu of a gift, we're going to make a donation to the Fisher House on your behalf. If you have a lunch ticket, they've just begun serving lunch in the back, and like yesterday, lunch will be served over a couple-hour period, so you can choose a time that works best for you. You can see the rest of today's agenda either on the app or on the slide behind me. Please enjoy the break. We'll be back here in this space at 13:30, 1:30 for Ms. Arrington's keynote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Well done.